Welcome to the Off the Mic Wrestling Show here on YouTube. I'm Mike Mayer. Appreciate y'all tuning in on this Mailbag Thursday. Usually for these shows, I kind of just compile some stories that I left over, some fallout stuff from what happened on the previous Dynamite or even from Raw, or some stuff that I've seen on the internet, some ridiculous take, some troll, or some things some weird topics that occasionally I'll see, or stuff you guys send in. Today the show is just easy because we have gotten gifted with a bunch of great stuff, including one of the big stories that professional wrestling has seen in quite some time. Because it looks like we are on the cusp of having WrestleMania in London, England. Because reportedly, there was actual footage of Triple H in London today. But Nick Khan, London Mayor Sadiq Khan, along with Triple H, were all meeting in London in their city hall to talk about the possibility and their shared desire to have WrestleMania in the capital city of the United Kingdom. And I cannot understate how big of a deal this is, because this is the flagship event of WWE. The biggest professional wrestling company in the world has never gone overseas for a show like this. And before this year, they rarely had gone overseas for premium live events. It has become a thing this year. They've got another one coming up in late August, Bash in Berlin. There's been more international shows this year than North American shows. Think about that. And this is World Wrestling Entertainment. But WWE has typically never taken their big four shows to some of these massive, overseas cities, with the exception of SummerSlam back in 1992. And that was the famed British Bulldog Bret Hart match for the Intercontinental title, one of the most famous finishes in the history of wrestling. But this is so freaking big. And you know what? On some level, I do have to give credit to AEW for kind of pushing this out there, because they took a huge chance last year going to Wembley Stadium for All In London, drawing the biggest crowd wrestling show in terms of tickets ever. If you want to be tribal and want to dispute that, the statistics and the data show that it broke records last year. But let's get real. All In is not WrestleMania. John Cena advocated for this at Money in the Bank last year. This has been a conversation for a long time. There is a big British fan base. You see a lot of content creators overseas, like the Wrestle Talks and the Cultaholics and the Parts Unknown. Those people of the world, they've really show their fandom. And I think this fan base deserves to have an event and just a week like WrestleMania to potentially be able to, put their fans out in front of the world for everybody to see and put on the biggest event possible worldwide. So this is a huge, immense deal. All it is now is about landing the plane and when it's going to happen, because I am convinced, especially with somebody like John Cena being as vocal as he's been in the last year or so about doing WrestleMania in London, and Triple H is WWE is not hidden from the fact, hey, doing more worldwide shows, because these crowds that have been showing up for Clash at the Castle or Backlash or the Elimination Chamber in Australia, like, you've got all of these different places that you're going, and it's just creating different vibes, and it's unlike anything. Bash in Berlin in August is going to be insane, especially if Gunther's going to walk in there as the World Heavyweight Champion, which I expect him to do. But this is just, like I said, it's just a huge deal. And really, like I said, it's going to come down to when they want to land the plane. As of now, I'd probably say 2026, 2027, it looks like, for 42 or 43. We already know that Indianapolis has something on the table for probably later down the line, like in 28 or 29, I think, because they get the Royal Rumble next year. But I think 2026 is the priority for this. And here's why. Because as we know, John Cena's got his retirement tour next year in 2025. And he has not stated when his last match is going to be. They could extend this retirement tour and give him one last match in London, where he advocated and was probably the biggest champion for this and really started the groundswell for this movement to get WrestleMania to London. I would make the argument that that would be a really smart idea to have John Cena effectively have his retirement match at WrestleMania 42 in London. We'll see if that actually happens. But the goal as of now, I think, for WWE, especially with doing this meeting now in July of 2024, is to try and see if they can land the plane and potentially do something sooner rather than later. Because obviously WrestleMania 41 is already on the books in Las Vegas, so you already know what you're doing there. But it's going to happen, and it's going to happen within the next two or 3 years. I'm pretty sure of that. They wouldn't be having this meeting if they weren't serious about this. Like, you have the two of the top executives in WWE flying out to London on a weekday to go meet with the mayor of London. That's a big freaking deal. Okay, speaking of big freaking deals, but on a lighter note, Drew McIntyre is a goddamn savage. Because did you guys see this? And I'm sure you did. If you didn't, it's a shame. It was deleted, but it's been screenshotted everywhere. Drew McIntyre earlier today tweets out a photo of him with Jack Perry and captions it, "It's real, cry me a river." What a savage this guy is on Twitter. It's a shame that it got deleted, because the heat levels of this and just what it's added to CM Punk. Somebody made a joke saying that Drew McIntyre's gotten more out of the Elite and in the CM Punk angle than the Elite did with their airing their all-in footage. Drew probably did more with this to just create more heat for his own feud. The reports are the reason why it was taken down. I mean, I haven't seen any reports, but I haven't seen any reports concrete related to it being related to WWE potentially taking it down and forcing it, saying, "Drew, hey, you may not, we can't do this." The one thing that I have seen is that CM Punk did not initiate this. He's okay with all of this, and he's in good spirits. He's not mean-spirited. I think he's playing ball. He understands what's going on here. I mean, even with some of his lighthearted jokes about there being fans on the other side of the camera and stuff, and they really haven't played up to WWE audiences, because WWE audiences don't give a crap about AEW. But based off what I've seen, and like I said, there's no concrete reporting about this from if WWE forced Drew to take this down. I'm led to believe, based off the way that they've done business recently, that probably wasn't the greatest look of all time, that Drew is using an AEW performer to kind of, and it's kind of like, helping the other place. Maybe AEW stepped in and said, "What the hell are you doing?" And you know what? I wouldn't put it past Tony Khan to complain about something like that. He did a lot of complaining today, which really irritated me a lot. So, but this was hilarious. And I can't wait for that match at SummerSlam, even with the involvement of Seth Rollins. I think that's going to add to the match. And just the levels of storytelling through social media, through a variety of pay-per-views, while CM Punk has not wrestled since January. In fact, I think I read that this match at SummerSlam, I think, is his first singles match in WWE in almost a decade exactly. I think it might have been Ryback in 2013. I think it might have been Battleground or somewhere else where he went one-on-one with Ryback. That's almost actually 11 years, because it's 2013, it's 2024. I almost got my years mixed up there. But that's insane to even think about. And he hasn't wrestled a singles match since he faced Samoa Joe at All in London to start off the show last year, from all that footage and nonsense that got aired as dirty laundry by AEW. So, but yeah, the more I read into this, I think, based off the way Punk has played ball through a lot of this. I think that this was something that they tried to do, and I guess maybe it didn't land one way or the other. Um, Nonetheless, it set the internet on fire. And Drew McIntyre, as I said, goddamn savage. That's amazing. So let's get to the ratings here for AEW Dynamite. So this is interesting. I was wrong about. I haven't seen the quarters yet. I was wrong about Dynamite and Blood and Guts in this show taking a dive in the ratings, a significant dive, because of the Joe Biden presidential address at the start of the show. The week over week, it was 795. Last week, it went down to 786. It was 0.27 last week in the 18 to 49, 0.26 this week. So relatively flat. Lost a little bit, which is not great. Let's not sugarcoat it. It's not great when you have a roster as talented as AEW has, and you're struggling to get to 800,000 viewers. But I mean, I would say that this is semi-good news for AEW that they were able to hold most of their audience in, even with some pretty stiff competition in the first 15 minutes of this show. And like I said, there was not a lot of good stuff on this. I'll have to see what the quarter hours look like, how many people were watching during Jericho, how many people were watching during Blood and Guts, how many people were watching during those two ridiculous squash matches that happened in the middle of the show. But like, if you're an AEW fan and you want to triumph at this, go ahead, do your thing. But like I said, a roster this talented and with this many bright and shining stars that they've paid a ton of money for, 786 is not great. That's not a great number. This is just not. It's not good. Like you look at in quarters per year, we look back at 2023, they were up in the high 800s on average per quarter. So we were looking at, like, for most of 2023, they started the year at 907, and I'm going to give you guys the numbers here. Like, I don't want to go too deep into this, but they spent most of the year declining, and they were in the 800,000 range. They have dropped significantly since the start of this year. Their average in the first quarter of 2024 was 810,000. We're now in quarter three. They're at 740. They've gone a little bit up from where the second quarter of this year was. So I'm just telling you what the numbers are dictating, that this company has really significantly fallen down since they were averaging 1 million in 2021, which was really the peak of where Bryan Danielson came in, CM Punk came in. They had all this momentum coming out of the pandemic and into live crowds. So if you want to celebrate, hey, yeah, we got 700,000 again. We held our own against a stiff competition. Listen, I think I underestimated that a lot of people were just going to look at clips of that Joe Biden address. It was a 15-minute address, and most wrestling fans are probably they're probably either watching that show or maybe they're, out doing something else. Some people might have just tuned into it live and then came back in, and I don't know how they tabulate the thing, but the point is, listen, it's good news, but I wouldn't call it amazing news. This company should be doing a lot better than 785,000 viewers. They shouldn't. And like I said, they lost viewership. Even if it was a small amount, they lost viewership. So this might be the norm, more closer to what they were 3-4 weeks ago when they were under 700,000. So anyway, that's really my analysis on this ratings thing. Okay. One thing that I didn't really go too deep into, and I didn't see this tweet from Corey Graves, so I want to address it now. I kind of blew past it because I was so pissed off about a lot of other things on the show last night. Is this unprotected chair shot from Mark Briscoe to Jack Perry near the end of the Blood and Guts match. No matter what you think, no matter if you think it's a gimmick chair or if it's lighter it's still an unprotected chair shot to the head in 2024, when we have had numerous studies about concussions and brain damage and what it does to the head. This should not be happening under any circumstances on a major wrestling show. If you want to go ahead and try and do this at an independent show, be my guest. I think you're stupid for doing it, but we shouldn't be hitting people in the head. Maybe even, I would even say, on the independent scene. Like, there's more reckless things there's a lot of reckless things you could do. But at this point, the analysis and the science has shown that brain damage is a real problem. You see guys getting hit in the head in the NFL, and they're doing everything that they can to legislate the sport to prevent headshots. AEW should be doing the same thing. They had an incident 5 years ago where they tried to gimmick a chair, and it went horribly, horribly wrong with Shawn Spears and Cody Rhodes, where they tried to get heat on Shawn Spears, but nobody gave a crap. It was early, and everybody was so focused on just how jarring it was to see an unprotected chair shot to the head. And listen, like, at some level, I'd be willing to maybe give somewhat of a pass in some respect if there was some, like, reason in storyline to, do something that egregious. If there was some way to, like, you're telling a story and it leads to an unprotected chair shot to the head, because that's an unwritten rule. That's been an unwritten rule in wrestling for a long, long time. If that leads you to do that, maybe I'd be willing to, hear you out for it. I was talking with one of my friends who I've interacted with on Spaces and saying, okay, you know what? If there's some overarching story to it, then that's fine. What happened last night, there was no story there. All that was, okay, they're trying to get Jack Perry to quit in a match that had no story build-up whatsoever. There were no stakes on the line. And basically it got to the point where hey, we're just getting violent until you quit. That is not a story. That is bullshit violence. And that is reckless, and it is stupid. I don't care if the chair was shaved down. I don't care if it was lighter. You're still hitting a guy in the head. That's not acceptable. We've been doing this for way too long, and AEW should have learned after 5 years. And I don't even care if you're trying to make Jack Perry look like some sort of tough guy. We know he's a punk ass. We just know from the CM Punk stuff. We just know. So it's just like, none of it landed for me. And like I said, in the like 1/1,000,000th of a possibility that I'd be willing to be okay with a spot like that, that was not the case here. So then, last night, Corey Graves, right after Dynamite finished airing, he tweets out the following: "This is not meant to sound judgmental or incite us versus them or question anybody's passion or talent or intentions. This is just coming from a guy whose career ended from a few too many accidental headshots. The art of this business is protecting ourselves and each other. Trust me, the gaps in memory are not worth it. I promise." He had that tweet up. He is 100% right, and he took it down. And I think it was because of fan outrage and how many people were being so outspoken and going after him for no reason, because they wanted to defend their precious AEW and their precious company, saying, oh, it's just a gimmick chair. It's not that big of a deal. And then, like, what the argument has deteriorated into now is we're talking about safety in organizations. And I've seen tribalists in AEW saying, oh, well, there's been a couple matches where guys have been knocked out in matches. If you're referencing Damian Priest, we still have no reason to believe. We don't know what happened there. But if he was knocked out or something like that, or something reckless, these are spots that they're trying that are not involving using a steel chair and smacking a guy over the head. That's, like I said, if you're taking like a suplex or maybe even a brain buster, and these moves are done 1,000 times, you don't see unprotected chair shots in professional wrestling anymore for a reason. You've seen it in football, and you've seen even in hockey they get concussions. Like, across all sports, you see so many guys getting hit in the head and the brain damage that it leads to. And then a guy who is as qualified as anybody. Corey Graves' career, I mean, I think he's cleared to compete, but he hasn't, had an official match since he retired about a decade ago. But Corey Graves is about as qualified as anybody to have an opinion on this. because his career ended because of a concussion, multiple concussions. So he knows what it feels like when you get hit in the head or when you get hit in the head with the chair. This guy went through it on the independent scene. He went through it in NXT. He went through it all in his career, and he had to retire and become a commentator. A really good one, by the way, but his career was cut short because of BS like chair shots to the head. So if you want to get mad at him, he's the wrong person to get mad at. He was totally right in having his opinion. It's a damn shame that he had to take that tweet down. I'm assuming because people were just so outraged about it, but it's just like, Corey, you did nothing wrong, buddy. Like you were in the right for saying something like that. So, all right. Anyway, moving along here, off the mic wrestling show here on YouTube. So interesting bit of information, and and this goes into something I was talking about last night about Bryan Danielson. So Bryan Danielson has been a complete afterthought since he won the Owen Hart Cup. He had a promo last night, which really, like I said, it made Jeff Jarrett look really good. Bryan just looks really like at peace, and he looks like he seems to be heading down the road of retirement. And he's been on record, by the way, in saying that he doesn't want to win the world championship. But this is a Tony Khan thing, and Tony Khan has, in like, one of the good things about Tony Khan, I'll give him this, he sends out legends the right way. He did it with Sting, and it looks like he's going to do it with Bryan Danielson. Like, he has treated legends really, really well in his company, and he's treated them with, for the most part, a lot of respect. So Bryan Danielson in this interview, like they interviewed a snippet of it with Renee Paquette last night. The full thing, I think, is up on social right now. Bryan Danielson reveals his wrestling contract with AEW is up a week from today. It's up on August 1st. It's up on August 1st. So, mind you, All In is like 3.5 weeks after that. So, there's a real possibility that Bryan Danielson's the world champion and he's not under contract with AEW. It's not the first time that they've done that. Jon Moxley, I think, during the pandemic didn't work with a contract for a long time. Cody Rhodes was the TNT champion at one point right before he left. He was working without a contract. So this has happened before, but it feeds into my whole problem with what I said last night is it feels like Bryan Danielson is completely disconnected from kayfabe and what is being told on AEW television, because he won the Owen Hart Cup. He's got the match with Swerve. Swerve cut a promo on him, and there has been no interaction between these two in the last 2 weeks. There's been more story being built between Hangman and Swerve. And in my opinion, if this is the way a couple things could have happened. You could have just not brought Hangman back and left him out of the picture and not had this sort of situation develop amongst your talent and amongst your booking strategies and your booking plans for All In. I understand you want to send Bryan Danielson out the right way, but the way that this is landed, you are making the decision to go with Bryan Danielson and Swerve Strickland, which admittedly will be a fantastic match. You are making it look significantly worse than the option of if you had gone with what everybody seemingly wants to see, Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Adam Page. And the fact that Bryan's contract's up August 1st, that doesn't make it look good either. And the fact that this happened in an AEW affiliated interview, a company interview, is not great either. That's not great. So, I mean, I hope they can find a way to tell a great story leading into All In, but you already have lost 2 weeks on this because you had to build the blood and guts. During that process, I think you've made yourself look even more stupid because Hangman and Swerve was the best thing in that blood and guts match. The fans were going crazy for that portion of the match. That has been the best feud in AEW in the last year. And for whatever reason, and I understand, like, the legacy part of this, but Bryan's even been on record saying he doesn't want to win the world title. So I get this is how Tony Khan books. I mean, it would really be something if Swerve won at All In. as opposed to Bryan. Because then, unless you're telling some sort of meaningful story leading into that match, that it's like his last match or it's the last, which it's not. He's not going to be done. He says he's not done wrestling full time. Maybe that's his last full time match, I guess you could say. But it's just like, at that point, what's the point? So like, initially I was kind of on board with this idea of Hangman and Swerve and Bryan Danielson. And day by day, week by week, this is looking like the wrong decision. Either they shouldn't have brought Hangman back, or they should have just, if they bring Hangman back, they should have had him win the Owen, because that just makes way more sense with the line of kayfabe and what you have been told on your television screens. Granted, AEW storytelling is very wonky, but this is one of the stories that they've really told really effectively for a long, long time, and we're not getting it at all in. I think that's a huge mistake. And based off these comments and like what we've seen from Bryan Danielson since, they got a long way to go. I mean, granted, they got a month to get there, but they're playing from behind right now. Speaking of All In, Darby Allin, as we know, has a TNT Championship match against Jack Perry at All In. If you don't want to see spoilers to Rampage, I would advise you to fast forward for a couple of minutes here while I rant on this. I'm not going to give you the timestamps, and if I spoil you, I'm sorry, but you've been warned. And if you watch Rampage, that's your own damn fault, because like I said, nobody watches Rampage. So they did the Royal Rampage, which this year was for a World Championship match at Grand Slam in September. It was won by, wait for it, go ahead, rewind, I'm telling you right now, it was won by Darby Allin. Why? I love Darby Allin. Why does Darby Allin now need to be in line as a number one contender effectively for 2 championships? That makes no sense whatsoever. Leave out the fact that this was taped right after Dynamite, and Darby was in a blood and guts match and then participated like 20 minutes later in this Royal Rampage match. So Darby wins. He's going to get Swerve or Bryan Danielson at Grand Slam at Arthur Ashe Stadium in September. I don't understand it, because you already have him facing Jack Perry for the TNT Championship. I guess this would lead me to believe that Jack Perry is going to retain the championship. I mean, he's barely had it, and I think he's barely defended it. I think he's had one title defense since he won the thing. So you're kind of giving away that finish. And then, is he really going to win the world title? You had an opportunity to maybe have somebody like a Claudio Castagnoli set up a potential match with Bryan Danielson at Arthur Ashe. You had potentially some young talent on your roster potentially in that match to potentially put over and go to Grand Slam. Hangman Adam Page, you could have thrown him in that match. I don't think he was in that match. Actually, another spoiler here. It looks like he got involved with Jeff Jarrett, and that may be a match at Wembley. That's a huge mistake. I don't know what they're doing. That's a mistake. I love Darby Allin. I think he's a crazy MFer, sometimes to a fault, like I've said. This was a mistake to give him 2 really enormous wins and 2 big opportunities stacked on top of each other. That's just not smart booking. It's just not. Like, I don't understand why they did that. And then this confused me, and I got into it with some AEW fans. So Battle of the Belts, I guess, is happening on Saturday. And so one of the matches that was announced on the internet by Tony Khan was Tony Storm, who I thought, as I said last night, returned way too early. 2 weeks after getting bloodied and busted open in the face, trying to sell this massive heel turn from Mariah May. She returns on Dynamite last night. I thought it was rushed. I thought it didn't need to happen. Okay, like, it's great to see Tony Storm. Everybody's happy to see her. So Tony Storm, mind you, this show is called Battle of the Belts. A non-title eliminator match against Taya Valkyrie. Okay. First of all, what the hell has Taya Valkyrie done in AEW in the last year that even warrants an opportunity like this? I like Taya Valkyrie, but she has been relegated to Ring of Honor. Granted, she's been getting to spend a lot more time with her husband, Johnny TV, the former John Morrison, which is awesome. I'm happy for them. Like, more power to you. You want to be happy in a company and be making money and working with the ones you love. That's your right. Like, I'm totally okay with that. But Taya Valkyrie has done next to nothing to be in a position to potentially be a number one contender. Then I pose this question because, first of all, I think this is ridiculous. Because, first of all, it's called Battle of the Belts. You have a non-title eliminator match where Toni Storm, who was rushed back to TV, is just in a random match on a random show for whatever reason, just because they want to see her wrestle. Okay. Then I posed the question on the internet, and I was called an idiot for this. Okay, so hold on. What if Taya Valkyrie wins? What happens if Toni Storm loses to Mariah May, which is very possible at Wembley Stadium? And people are saying, Taya Valkyrie will get a world title shot against Mariah May. Why? Why? Because she beat the champion that lost a month later? That doesn't make any sense. These eliminator matches, I was so frustrated when WWE did these championship contender matches. This does not make an ounce of freaking sense. And I was called an idiot. I was called, you need to be spoon-fed. Like, it's really simple. I was like, it's not. First of all, I know Taya's not going to win. So why is the match happening in the first place? Secondly, like, if she wins and then Toni Storm's not the champion, what warrants you getting a world title shot in that realm of reality in the first place? Like, that doesn't make an ounce of sense. And this is the type of crap that bugs me because it's stuff that's thrown on the internet where nobody's to see, and there's just like, oh, hey, this match is happening. And then the show's called Battle of the Belts, and it's a non-title match. So, good job. Another thing that pissed me off. Oh, brother. This was weird. So, I've made no qualms that Mercedes Moné, I maybe have been a little bit too harsh on her, because I do see that some of her influence has really helped the women's division in AEW. A lot of the women's division feuds are really hot. She really helped elevate Willow Nightingale. Obviously Stephanie Vaquer is now in another company, and I think that was because of the work that she was able to do with Mercedes in the match at Forbidden Door. And now you got this feud simmering with Britt Baker, and it could be one of the biggest women's matches in company history, because Britt is the original AEW women's star. She was the first one to sign, first female star to sign, and she's stuck there since day one. She just had her first match back in 9 months. It was fine. Could have been a lot better. She looked rusty, but that's to be expected. Britt's not the greatest worker, but it's like, I think you put her in a match with Mercedes, it would be fine. But anyway, so they did an angle last night where Britt gets the win over Hikaru Shida, and out comes Mercedes Moné, and Mercedes effectively denies her challenge for a TBS title match at All In. And it leads to an attack from Camille, who they finally figured out they had on her roster, and they utilized her. They made her this bodyguard effective, heavy for Mercedes Moné. So, great. So, Comic-Con's going on in San Diego this week, and AEW was there. A lot of their top stars out in San Diego for this event. And there was a confrontation, and it's now been released by AEW people, but there was a confrontation between Britt Baker, Mercedes Moné, who was dressed up as Poison Ivy, and then Camille was dressed up as Bane, but it was dressed up as the wrong Bane. They were going for Batman and Robin Bane, but because Poison Ivy wasn't even in Batman. I forgot what the third Batman with Anne Hathaway. I forgot what it was called, but there's Batman Begins, Dark Knight. I think it was Dark Knight Rises. Yeah, it was Dark Knight Rises. So basically, like, that was the whole getup of that was weird. But anyway, so they have this confrontation, and so they get in each other's faces. They stage this fight. Orange Cassidy's trying to hold it back. Swerve Strickland's trying to hold Mercedes back. Like, Will Ospreay's in the middle of this. And so they hold each other back. Tony Khan, who is the least intimidating authority figure on the face of the earth, starts yelling in this really weird tough guy voice saying, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this. You know what? I really want to see that match. I'm sick of you two fighting all over the place. The match is on and All In. And I'm like, what? Mercedes just said no last night. And now just a day later, when you're in front of a bunch of fans and comic book geeks at Comic-Con, that's going to be how you're going to book this match? And it's announced on Twitter and then you air footage. Why aren't you using your television show that you're about to get a new deal? And I'm going to get to that in a second. Because Tony Khan had some comments that pissed me the F off. What was this? I think the match will be fine. It's just these booking strategies. There was no, with these women's matches, you got potentially 2 hot women's feuds. There was no reason to rush Toni Storm back for her situation. And now you've got her in a random wrestling match. And then Britt Baker and Mercedes Moné, we know it's happening. You don't need to announce it like this minute. We know it's happening. You've been hinting at it on television. And then, after Mercedes denied it, being the heel, she's running away. She just has a new hired gun, a new bodyguard in Camille, who you just debuted. And the next day, you're announcing the match. That makes no sense whatsoever. None. Zero. That was dumb. I don't know why they did it. And people will say, oh, it gets some publicity for being at Comic-Con. Promote it on your show. Or at least give us a hint that maybe something might happen. Nobody had any idea that was going to go down. So the people that were in that room that paid for a ticket to go to that event, they're the only ones that know that happened. Unless you pay attention to social media. And this is the type of stuff that just is making people gradually lose interest in AEW. All right. Couple things before I go from Tony Khan. He had his Ring of Honor call with the media. Death Before Dishonor is tomorrow. I believe Athena, who I love, is fantastic. She deserves way more screen time than she's getting. Ring of Honor, they're trying, but it's just like it doesn't have the visibility. And it's just, but she's facing Queen Aminata for the women's championship. Historic run for Athena. That my main event, but Mark Briscoe is also defending the Ring of Honor world title against Roderick Strong. Okay, cool. Apparently Paul White, by the way, is now a Ring of Honor authority figure. So I thought Stokely Hathaway and Jerry Lynn were, but I've only faintly paid attention to Ring of Honor for the last year and a half or something like that. So anyway, Tony Khan's on this call. A couple things that he said that really jumped out at me. Number one, he basically stated that he feels like he gets more criticism for booking 5 to 6 match cards than if other companies did the same. And he gets more criticism in general over his booking. No shit. Your booking sucks. And last I checked, have you seen the internet for every premium live event that WWE has booked outside of WrestleMania? Oh, why is the show only 5 or 6 matches? What the hell? And there's so many ad breaks and there's only this amount of wrestling. Don't complain about that crap. That's bullshit. What are we doing here? Like, everybody gets criticism in this space. The reason why you get criticism is because you invited Tony Khan. Which leads me into my next one. Unprovoked, he's asked about the Warner Brothers Discovery deal, and if the deal's done. There's been reports out that, and he called it premature, that the deal is done with Warner Brothers Discovery, that AEW is gonna re-up. I think their exclusive negotiating window is about to end. So, unprovoked, after a question and after he does the answer, he says, quote, I had a major member of the wrestling media mention to me yesterday that WWE is telling people, and I don't know why WWE is telling people about our media rights deal. I don't really know if it's any of their business. I don't really understand why WWE PR calls people and talks about my business. WWE is telling people that the deal is done, and the deal is done at the same level that it was going to be our previous deal. That's not the case. So then he's befuddled, and he continues on and says, I don't know why WWE PR and why major wrestling media members who are very credible and have never lied to me are, I don't know why they're telling people that. It's none of their business. I think WWE PR really gets involved in a lot of things that they shouldn't get involved in, and I can tell you that is very untrue. When we make a deal for AEW, it's going to be a great deal with a big increase over what we've been doing. We're in a really good position and doing great business despite what they're doing to us. Why, on so many company calls, does Tony Khan keep invoking WWE? Worry about your own goddamn product. The reason why you are struggling and the reason why there are these narratives and there are these things out there. And I don't know where this came from. I have an idea of who the credible media member is. Dave Meltzer. I have a good idea of where that came from. You shouldn't be airing your dirty laundry in front of the media and acting like a punk-ass rich kid, nepo baby, whatever, about this stuff and throwing tantrums when you're being asked legitimate questions about why the hell your media rights deal is up later this year and you still haven't announced a new one. Your ratings have sucked for a long time. You've done a bunch of cheap, stupid bullshit on your show, and your ratings have tanked for months. And you take a rumor from some reporter, like I said, Dave Meltzer, and you're led to believe that, okay, that WWE is leaking media. First of all, why would WWE even care about your media rights deal being done? Secondly, why are you talking about WWE when you're on a call I understand you were asked about your media rights deal, okay? But you're on a call to promote Ring of Honor. You're talking about AEW and the media rights deal. Move on. This doesn't need to be out in the open. It made no sense. It sounded petty. It makes you sound really weak. And frankly, it sounds like you're panicking. Because if you're going to that length to really speak out and defend yourself, that tells me that things may not be so great in AEW land when it comes to this media rights deal. So, again, AEW has really been pissing me off. Like I said, chair shots, an unnecessary amount of violence in that blood and guts match. Their ratings are in the tank. No really great. They can't figure out what their top storyline is for their top feud at the biggest show. Granted, I give them a ton of credit. They're going to get about 50,000 people into that stadium at Wembley, so I'll end on a positive note there. But Tony Khan, and I've said this on this show extensively for the longest time, worry about your own damn product. Don't worry about WWE. They're doing just fine. Don't get into these wars. This is what has gotten you into trouble so many times. So if I'm giving you a piece of advice, and yeah, I'm just an idiot on the internet. So you don't have to listen to me. But you clearly listen to a lot of people on the internet. Stop worrying about WWE. I'll end it on that. Thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate you. Appreciate the support and love. Follow and please like, share, and subscribe to the channel here, OT Mike Wrestling. Follow the channel on X, Twitter, OT Mike Wrestling there as well. And follow me at Off the Mic 28. If you want to yell at me, scream at me, I really don't care. I love the banter, even if I know that most of you are completely and utterly wrong. I'm kidding. Love y'all. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.